regular meeting of the Building Board of Appeals for Thursday, July 20th, 2023. Roll call.
Paul Darling,
Here.
Robert Hart,
Here.
Hugh Flack,
Here.
David Arnsdorf,
Here.
Kevin Cox, staff, Michael Redmond,
Here.
Mike Lemieux,
Here.
John Reiser,
Here.
and myself, Deborah Williams. We have a quorum.
First item on the agenda is public commentary general. Is anyone here from the, would like to make a public comment? Seeing no one. And is nobody virtual making a public comment?
There's no one in the waiting room.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Vote.
Aye.
Agenda is passed. Four left, nothing. Approval of the minutes from the May 25th, 2023 meeting. Any comments on the minutes? Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Appeals, actions, and show cause hearing. We have the first appeal on the agenda is 231260 from at 1100 Broadway Street, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we have an applicant virtually for this. So we usually do our staff report first, so let's have our staff report.
All right. Staff recommends that this application be denied as it does not meet the standards for approval. The building located at 1100 Broadway requires an emergency backup generator to be installed per Section 403 of the 2015 Michigan Building Code. The petitioner is requesting to connect a temporary emergency backup generator into the portable generator cabinet intended for use when the main permanent generator requires service. By doing so, they eliminate the code-required connection point listed in Article 700.3F, temporary source of power for maintenance or repair of the alternate source of power. In this configuration, if maintenance were required on the emergency generator, there would not be a location to connect a temporary generator, which makes this configuration less than equivalent to the code requirements. This is being proposed to obtain temporary certificates of occupancy for the first 2 floors while waiting for the permanent generator to be delivered. During this time, the upper 3 floors of the building will be at varying degrees of completion and still undergoing construction of differing levels. I'd like to add a recent update based on current inspections. The project has moved forward with connecting the portable generator to the permanent generator lugs. At the inspection conducted 7/18/2023, the generator connection to the permanent emergency generator lugs was approved. At an inspection performed 7/20/2023, the remote generator annunciator panel was not compatible with the mobile generator that was installed. As of 7/20, no load testing of the generator had been conducted. The remote generator annunciator is a required element of the emergency backup generator. That's just what's gone on since I wrote the staff report.
That's great, thank you.
So can I ask a quick question? Does that change your position on the recommendation?
It does not.
Okay.
So can I ask a question as well? I want to make sure I understand so we've got 2 panels, correct?
Correct.
One designed for the permanent one and one designed for a temporary emergency
Correct.
connection. Okay. So we've got a temporary generator connected to the permanent panel right now,
Correct.
but nothing connected to the emergency, and the emergency generator cannot connect to that panel. There's some incompatibility issue.
So the way that they moved forward is different than what the appeal is.
Okay.
The way they moved forward was they have the temporary generator hooked up in the permanent location.
Okay.
The actual connections have been inspected and approved. In this configuration, it would leave the that essentially auxiliary panel, accessible if the one in the permanent position needed servicing.
Okay,
And that's the current configuration.
Okay.
In its current configuration, it hasn't had load testing, and there's an issue with the annunciator panel that's on site. But as far as location and connection, the way it sits now is as though it were the permanent generator.
okay. So presumably, when the permanent generator arrived, they would connect a temporary generator on the temporary panel, take the existing temporary one out, and put the new permanent one in. Is that, would that
That's
be
my
the
assumption.
sequence?
Yeah.
All right, we have our applicant, Virtual, so can they present their case here, what they're asking for in their appeal?
Yes, this is Ron Mucha. Is it my turn to speak?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, okay. So hi, I'm Ron Mucha. I'm a principal with Morningside Group. We're the developer of 1100 Broadway and the Beekman on Broadway project. I am joined online today by Eric Stein. Eric is a principal with the engineering studio. They're the project's electrical engineer. And also, the phone number used to be 847. That's my colleague, Tom Cahill. Tom is the senior project manager who's overseeing the construction of the project on site. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to just quickly clarify that the discussion of the generator and potentially connecting it in a permanent ways, it's not germane to what we're talking about in terms of the request that we're making, the appeal. If you'd indulge me, I have a few comments I'd like to explain our position, and of course we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. So the problem we have and the reason for the appeal is straightforward. The permanent generator is delayed due to pandemic supply chain disruption. The solution to this problem that we have proposed is to utilize a temporary generator on an interim brief basis until the permanent generator, which is in process of being procured, is delivered and installed. And I want to just make it crystal clear that we are in no way proposing to eliminate the permanent generator. We just need to get it to the site. Now, the code, the electrical code, NEC already requires that we install a cabinet to facilitate connection of a temporary generator. It effectively makes it a plug-and-play installation. So you can bring it out to the site, wheel it up, plug it in. It's a quick, simple installation. And that cabinet has already been installed. So what we are proposing is to connect the temporary generator to that cabinet. And the basis of our appeal is that in doing so, it's an equivalent installation. Now, the city response, as Mike mentioned in the staff report, is that if maintenance were required, there would not be a location to connect a temporary generator. And that's the basis of their rejection of our solution. And we vehemently disagree with this position, and I'd like to explain why. So, when scheduled maintenance of the temporary generator would be required, and mind you, maintenance on the temporary generator isn't required until you've achieved 300 hours of runtime on the temporary generator. So we're all in this business. We know that amount of time is, it's a vast amount of time. So it's unlikely that we would even get to a maintenance situation. But for the sake of this discussion, let's assume, we do get to that point somehow. And when maintenance is required, the way it's performed is you don't disconnect the generator. The people would come to it, and during the maintenance, they may have to turn it off at times. Some of the maintenance they can do with the plugged in on. Other maintenance they need to turn it off. But and again, this is kind of a stars aligning situation, but if somebody was out performing maintenance on the generator and it was at a point in the maintenance where it was turned off, and at that exact moment DTE had an interruption in power, then the maintenance tech would just stop the maintenance and turn it back on. So it's not a situation of being without power. And in addition, if there were a slightly different situation Or let's say that the temporary generator required some kind of repair, similar to if the permanent generator required a repair. Well, in that situation, regardless of which generator needed repair, it's the same exact steps. A call is made to Sunbelt, and we have a temporary generator delivered to the site. If the permanent were in place, you would just bring this, you would wheel up the temporary generator and plug it in. In the case we're proposing, they would bring the new generator to the site, so it's the same exact amount of time to get it to the site. The only difference is that you would have to unplug and wheel out the existing temporary generator, and then wheel in and plug in the new one. And that process is measured in minutes. So I guess I would stop there. That's how we see it. It seems pretty straightforward. So our request is that you grant our appeal to utilize the temporary generator on this interim basis, connected to the cabinet, the plug-in, until the permanent generator is installed.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So at present, the temporary generator is actually connected to the permanent generator connections. Are you going to disconnect it and move it back over to the temporary panel?
Yes, David, we would. And again, I don't know that really that's germane for today's discussion, but since you brought it up, we were attempting to proceed with that as a workaround to even coming to the Board of Appeals. But with the requirements that have been laid out by the building department, we can't meet their demand for what they needed to. They want some kind of exact replication of a permanent generator. In good faith, we tried. We spent money and time doing that, but it doesn't appear that that's ever going to work. So that's not what we're talking about today. We're just talking about going back to our original solution, which was use the temporary and plug-in configuration.
One other question. When you have the permanent generator in place, will you also have a temporary generator on site all the time?
No. Once the permanent generator comes out and is installed, what we will have, David, is we'll have the plug, the cabinet for the plug-in, and then in the event that we need a temporary generator, it would be delivered to the site and plugged in.
Okay.
What powers the portable generator? Is it diesel based, or is there a diesel connection like there is?
It is diesel, yes.
So that will be connected to a diesel tank? Is that?
Yeah, why don't I have Tom, why don't you answer this technical question?
The portable generator is on the trailer, it has its own tank.
Okay. And the building is under construction, so there'll be a situation where a couple of floors might be occupied, but construction will be continuing on the upper floors. Are all the emergency systems for the upper floors in place and functional?
Well, with all due respect, what is the relevance of that question to the question of whether we can use the temporary generator? I mean, it would be the same issue whether it's permanent or temporary. I don't see where that's part of today's discussion.
I'm asking the question. Could you just answer it, please? I'd just like to know. Is there a problem?
Well, I don't mind answering it, but I guess the question is, it gets into another topic that is not part of the agenda today, and it could be perhaps confusing to the issue at hand. We don't mean to be argumentative, but there's other discussions that are going on with the building department about some of that.
Okay, then never mind.
How big is the tank on this temporary generator? Is that to be refilled or over hours, or how is that monitored since it's not direct field service?
I gotta look it up.
Sure. If you give us a second, we'll find the answer.
Multiple hours of runtime, what kind of runtime, is it?
I gotta pull it up so you can read it. Like full capacity, the hours, fill, standby, which is, a quarter load would be over 300. 250 hours, sorry.
Okay.
And less than full load. So, 180 hours full load, or it would need to be full refill, according to the product literature.
Okay, thank you.
And Mike, I think I did send this to you at some point in the past, Mike. If you want me to send it again, I'm happy to do it.
What does the generator primarily power? I presume it's not set to power the whole building. So there must be just some,
Yeah,
sprinkler systems primarily? And some emergency lights?
I can take a shot at it if you'd like, real quick, and then Eric, you can correct me if I'm, if this is too general of an answer. So it is a source of power for the fire pump, and then what you would call the emergency system. So there's a total of 175 circuits spread around 9 panels. Those circuits are emergency lighting, elevators, light safety systems, like you mentioned. So most of the low voltage light safety systems, and then the lighting would be typical emergency lighting in the corridors. It does not provide power to the apartment.
Okay.
It's effectively, 4 42 breaker panels in terms of circuit, if that means anything. And if you'd like a more detailed description, either Eric could get it, or I could kind of rattle off the things that are on the panel.
That's good enough for me.
Now, the city mentioned there's some testing that still needs to be done, load testing and such.
That's correct. And I would like to add, too, that any connection of the generator would need to meet the code minimums for life safety, be that the enunciating panel that, isn't currently, like those types of things will have to be in place. And I don't think that, I don't know that part of the appeal was to not have those in place. Like something that Ron said, it struck me as that we were requesting things that were unreasonable as for a temporary generator. There are certain functions that has to perform to keep all of the life safety elements that are required online. So I don't believe that this is appeal for any of those. In saying that, I believe that the temporary generator needs to be hooked up in a way that it functions exactly the same way as the permanent generator is intended to, because it is intended for life safety purposes.
So Mike, go ahead, Tom, you could start, but I want to just, before you say that, Mike, this is a temporary generator. It's not intended to be a permanent installation. The permanent generator would come, this is an interim period. This temporary generator will function just as it's intended and designed to act. That's the whole point, is that it's not permanent. We're not trying to make a temporary generator permanent. We were trying in good faith to do that by taking this temporary generator and making some changes to it and wiring it up in a way that it typically isn't used to try to gain your acceptance. And it's become, I think, clear to us that we're not going to be able to do that. But the code does not require that this temporary generator be connected that way. Tom, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so Mike, as far as the enunciator goes, you are aware of the conversation that John, your electrical inspector, had with our electrical subcontractor and my generator technician today. Morningside, on its own, expedited the generator enunciator panel that would eventually and will eventually be connected to the permanent Cummins diesel generator. We had Cummins break it out and expedite it to H&B. And then we had H&B bring it to the job site so that we could attempt to use this generator, portable generator on wheels as a permanent generator, as a worker, like Ron said earlier. And we proved today that we can operate the generator, but the enunciator panel would connect to the permanent generator in a way that the portable generator does not allow. There just aren't the contacts for it.
So-
And the point Ron's trying to make is, Morningside originally and today has requested to use the portable generator on wheels through the portable generator cabinet. In that configuration, the enunciator panel is irrelevant because it goes with the permanent generator, not the temporary generator.
But doesn't the
Does that make sense?
isn't the basic code say that there has to be enunciation if the emergency generator kicks on, right?
That's my understanding.
I mean, that's what the code says. So that, I mean, this seems like, I don't know, on one hand, it's saying that the temporary is going to be functioning exactly as the permanent, as an interim method, but it's not really. So, I mean,
Robert, can I speak to that? I want to address your point, because I understand what you're saying,
yeah,
but let me give an example to kind of explain what's happening. Let's say, for example, that we weren't here. The permanent generator came when it was supposed to and was installed, and we got our TCO. Okay? And then let's say 2 days later, the thing turns out to be a lemon and it doesn't work. In that case, we would order a temporary generator, plug it in, as is provided for, and it would run until we had the permanent generator repaired or replaced or whatever the case may be. There would be no enunciator panel connected to that. That's the point. The code doesn't require it. So that situation is already contemplated as happening, and Eric can speak to the NEC. I'm no expert on the code, but I do understand from the provisions, it's been explained to me, there is nothing in the NEC that limits the amount of time that the temporary generator can run in that scenario that I just outlined. Now, obviously, you want to fix it as quickly as possible, but the goal is not to, continue to run on it any second longer than you have to. But I'm just saying the code doesn't, it's very specific. It doesn't require the same sort of connections and requirements for the temporary as it does for the permanent. And the reason, again, is to kind of go way back to the beginning. The only reason we're here is we are snarled up it's in the supply chain disruption due to the pandemic. So we are actively working with, I don't know if you're all aware, it's a Cummins generator, and we are actively working with Cummins and the electrical contractor to get that damn generator out as quickly as we can, and we're pushing very hard. We're doing everything we can to expedite it to minimize the time frame. Time frame that Mike mentioned in his staff report is meant to be conservative. We certainly hope to have it connected before then, but I can't guarantee it. But we tried to be conservative in the time frame that we put out. So I think that's a key distinction that gets confusing because, and I can forgive you, you're probably not aware of this issue until you saw the staff report or asked a few questions of each other, but this attempt to connect a temporary generator to the building and make it quote-unquote permanent was really just a workaround to try to solve the problem. In good faith, we did it. We weren't sure it was a great idea. It started out with saying we'll make it permanent, and then it seemed like, every day, every week, there were more and more requirements to make it not just, equivalent, but now it had to be exactly the same to make it permanent, and we can't satisfy every one of those requirements. We've been trying in good faith, and we can get it most of the way there, but there are things that we just can't make happen because it is, by definition, temporary. So So all those things about, well, you have to make this generator have all these permanent features, they're not germane to this notion that we use a temporary generator on an interim basis.
I understand that, but
Okay.
that's not, I mean, the conversation wasn't really going that way. It was suggesting that there was an equivalency of the portable functioning like the permanent. And there's a section in the code that was in the NEC that was in our packet that basically seems to indicate that if the permanent generator is disconnected from the emergency system, that there be an enunciation at a location remote from the generator. I guess I don't understand why that's so hard to accomplish. Well,
What does the enunciation panel do?
it lets you know that there is an emergency situation, and
Does it
depending
now,
on...
is it all over the building? Are there-
Yeah, well,
Is it an intercom system all over the building?
Depending, the way I understand it, there are several kinds, but it can also tell you exactly where where the problem is. You know, if it's a problem at a particular smoke detector or some other device that's being monitored that's part of the emergency system. So if there's a glitch somehow in the circuitry between the emergency generator and at the emergency generator, it'll let you know that there's a problem.
So Robert, would it be okay if I asked Eric Stein, the electrical engineer, to speak to this concern?
Yeah,
He probably has more
absolutely.
knowledge than all of us. Eric, could you please address this for the group? And correct anything that may have been incorrectly stated by me, please?
Yes, yes. So I understand the concern about the enunciation. So I would refer to the code section that's in the packet. It's 700.3F, and that is F5, where it says, the switching means shall include a contact point that shall enunciate at a location remote from the generator or at another facility on a system to indicate that the permanent emergency source is disconnected from the emergency system. So the code requirement here for enunciation is simply to say that we're using a temporary generator rather than a permanent generator. And that is typically accomplished at the portable generator connection cabinet. It's essentially saying we're using the temporary connectors, not the permanent connectors. And that's what the code requires here. It should not be confused with a typical generator enunciator panel, which, for a permanent installation, which would be connected to the generator, and it would report many additional pieces of information for the generator. So what I believe that Morningside was trying to accomplish previously was to get the regular permanent remote enunciator panel connected to the temporary generator. It can monitor all sorts of functions. But that's not what this code section requires. It's simply saying we're on the temporary generator, we're not on the permanent generator. And so in this case, once that portable cabinet is manually transferred to the temporary side, there will be a contact in that cabinet, and it will enunciate remotely that we are indeed using a temporary generator.
Staff, any comment about that? Any comment about that?
I don't, but we also have John Lucht, our electrical inspector here. If we have more specific code questions, he's more knowledgeable than I am on electrical code requirements. So if you have questions, we could direct to him.
It's the fire department. Excuse me.
I actually do have a comment on this. So this is the fire marshal. So your intention, and I want to kind of work off your statement here. You want to put a temporary generator in that's going to power life safety systems, and you're doing this for the intent to occupy a building. So in my mind, you want to take an emergency situation to occupy in a building. To me, it's apples to oranges. If you have a permanent generator and you're already an occupied building that has its capacity, and then you have an emergency that requires a temporary generator, then that's what you have to do. What you're trying to do is create an emergency situation to occupy a building.
Michael, I agree with much of what you just said, but where I would differ with you is we're not trying to do this. What we're doing is we're trying to solve a problem, which is the permanent generator is just not yet available to the site. And this is a project, it's supply chain issues abound in construction, and we're trying to find a solution to this one. So we're trying to remedy a problem. We're not trying to eliminate the permanent generator. If it were up to us, we'd have the permanent generator installed. But I understand you just said, well, if, as long as you have the permanent installed already, you'd be, that's the next thing you do. You rely on the temporary. And we're saying, well, we just don't have we don't have the permanent generator. We can't get it quickly enough. And so we would like to use the temporary generator the same way it would be used, like in my explanation, if 2 days after we install it, the thing no longer works. So in that sense, it's equivalent, because in either situation, you're running off a temporary generator. Now, it's not equivalent in the sense that in one scenario, the permanent generator functions at least for some period of time, whether it's a day or longer. And in the other scenario, you're starting out with a temporary generator before the permanent comes. But it's otherwise it performs the same, and it's the same code requirements for the temporary generator.
And I disagree with you, because you're trying to, if the building was already occupied under a permanent generator and it failed, you would use a temporary. But you're already starting off with a shortcoming of code compliance to try to occupy a building.
Right, but the distinction is that we're not proposing this to get away with anything. We're not proposing this to make something easier. We're proposing it because we are caught up in a supply chain disruption, and without doing this, then the building can't be occupied. So we're trying to remedy a situation that would have very significant consequences, negative consequences for all the parties involved. And again, we don't know how, the generator could go in and it's a day later, we're making the switch. I mean, it's kind of we're getting caught up in a bit of nuance. Now, obviously, it'd be better to have the permanent generator installed, period. That's what we all would like. But we explain the reason that we don't have it.
When do you expect the permanent generator to be available?
So what we've communicated to the building department is that we would expect it to be installed and functioning and tested and everything else in October, which means we would expect the delivery in the later part of September. We believe that is a conservative estimate. I can't guarantee that. Obviously we'd like to outperform it. We're not going to come in and propose a date that we know would be wrong and be later. We'd rather propose a date and come in early, which would be to everyone would prefer that. So we're hoping that's the case, and we are in constant communications with Cummins and with the electrical contractor to anything we can possibly do to expedite it and make that happen. So this is intended to be a very short-term bridge. Keep the project moving forward.
Mr. Mooch, are you okay? Can any of the other participants hear us?
This time, Cahill, I can hear you again, but I lost you for about a minute there when Ron was speaking. I didn't really hear what you said at the very end there.
Mr. Mutra has gone offline.
We'll wait till he's back then.
I'm sorry,
We'll wait till he's back, or let's,
give it a couple minutes.
So if you can hear me, Ron is trying to reconnect. So I might wait a little bit here to see if he can get back in. That would be helpful.
okay.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yeah, text messages, so. Right here. Mike, this time, Cahill, I'm gonna switch off this phone just for a sec to try to help Ron. I'll be right back.
I have someone dialing in now, number ending in 134.
It should be a 312 number, 312-804.
That should be Mr. Mutra then.
Yep, thank you. Hello?
We hear you.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. I hope you were able to hang on. I'm sorry, my video feed is gone, so this is Ron, I just dialed back in.
Any other questions by the board?
The code citations that are in our packet, the 2700 series, is that from the fire code? Or the building code? or-
Yeah, let me look.
This,
I
It's the
believe that
building
that's
code.
building code.
It would not be fire. For fire code, it comes out of chapter 6, so.
okay, so
Yeah,
the
yeah,
F is just the reference to the, cross-reference to the fire code. So one question, so we're looking at a page that describes what is necessary for standby and emergency power. Things like low transfer, low duration, uninterruptible power source, the 2702 provision of provisions for standby and emergency power. I guess my question is, if you go ahead and put in a portable generator and have it try to function or function as a permanent emergency generator, will that arrangement meet all the provisions of the code, or are there certain key exceptions that it can't satisfy?
Well, this is Ron, I'd like to say something, and then I'd like Eric to address this, but, again, just to kind of go back to the beginning, we're not installing this generator in a permanent capacity.
No, I understand that. Wait, excuse me. I understand you're not proposing to do that as a permanent thing. I'm just saying that if you're using it as if it was a permanent emergency generator, will that arrangement meet all the provisions that are listed in the code as far as the capability to do load transfer, load duration? You know, I'm not going to detail them all out here, but will it do the same exact thing until the permanent one is in place?
Eric, if you could address that, and also,
I mean, is that
maybe I
hard a
should say,
question?
if you could address to whether the code requires the generator to do that, but if you could please answer the question, I appreciate it.
Yes, the temporary generator is connected in the line of power connections in the exact same way as the permanent generator. So everything that was served by emergency systems with the permanent generator is also served by the temporary generator. It's the change is right at the source of power. So the portable generator cabinet is the same cabinet that the permanent generator is connected to, and the temporary generator is connected to. And if you had a permanent generator, the manual switch would be set on the permanent one. And then it would go from there into the building and go through the emergency system. If you have a problem with the permanent generator or it's not there, then the portable generator cabinet switch is changed to the temporary side, and the power instead comes from the temporary generator. It goes through the exact same wiring to all of the exact same loads.
And therefore, it's capable, the arrangement, the interim arrangement that you're talking about is capable of responding as quickly and as efficiently as if it was a permanent system.
Yes.
Thank you.
You might just have to help me clarify something, please.
How many units are on the first and second floor that you're occupying? That's, how many dwelling units?
Can you answer that, please?
I'm sorry, what was the question? How many units on which floors, please?
First and second, yeah, I think applying to those two.
1 second. $61 on the first 2 floors. And Mike, can I clarify something I said earlier, please?
Go ahead, John.
So I did the math incorrectly on the hours of operation at full load. It's 24, we have to refill the generator every 24 hours if it's running at full capacity. If it were to run at full capacity.
Okay.
It wouldn't run at full capacity, but that would be the absolute maximum, once a day, if that were to happen.
Without the enunciators, and something should occur with the temporary generator on a weekend, say, and you're not occupying the site, how soon would you find out you have a problem?
Eric, can you please respond?
I believe that's more of a logistical question in terms of how you would monitor a temporary generator setup.
Right, I could give you a real life scenario if that's what you want.
Sure.
Yeah, if you have the answer, Tom.
Sure, so it would be the same as if the permanent diesel generator were there and operating on a weekend, and for some reason it didn't work or it ran out of diesel fuel, and then it wasn't operating anymore. It powers the life safety systems and the lights in the corridor. And the normal communication from the building would be either a tenant would call or there'd be some sort of supervisory or other notification on the fire alarm panel. And then one of our maintenance guys who typically gets the notifications from Central Alarm would get the notifications. That's how it worked. If it was the middle of the night and no Morningside staff was physically on the property, it would be the same anyway. That helps.
Could I ask for clarification on that question? Was that a question if the generator is running and there's an issue, or if the generator is sitting standby because the normal power is on?
I was trying to explain what would happen if the temporary generator on a trailer was connected to the building and operating, and it does not have a remote annunciator panel, and something happened. How would that be different than if the permanent generator was there and it had a remote annunciator panel and it stopped working? The remote annunciator panel, Mr. Redmond, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that panel is going to be in the FCC room, which is, roughly 40 or 50 feet from where these generators are. But it's within a back of house space that tenants and our staff don't normally see. If I remember correctly. It's a remote panel that someone could walk up and look at and understand the status of the generator, but it's not out in the open. And it doesn't actually, the remote annunciator panel, Eric, if I remember correctly, doesn't really communicate to human beings. It's a standalone panel that you walk up and look at.
That's correct, yeah. That was why I was asking the question. I agree.
So if it's connected to a permanent generator, it'd be in the FCC room, you'd have to go in the FCC room to see it. If the standby generator was operating, there'd be no remote annunciator panel, because no one would see it. Obviously, either way, you gotta go in the FCC room. And I don't believe it communicates to the outside world. So in the failure mode, there'd be a lack of power to like the fire alarm panel, or, the lights would be off in the corridor. There'd be a notification as a result of one of those failures. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Any other questions from the board?
It was mentioned that this arrangement was intended to be a short-term bridge, and conservatively that, I'm not sure conservatively meaning which way conservative leans, but that the permanent generator would be installed by October. What if that doesn't happen?
Well, so that is correct. We said short-term bridge, and when I did say conservatively, I meant we hope that that's the date we gave you, October. We hope to improve upon that. But like I said earlier, I can't guarantee it. So if it took longer, then we would continue to have this arrangement in place. But again, I want to emphasize this matter is being it's actively being dealt with at the highest levels of not just the subcontractors, but also companies. So there's a lot at stake here. We understand that, the situation needs to be remedied as quickly as possible, and they understand that as well. So we're doing everything we possibly can, to make this as short a period as possible. And again, we hope to improve upon the dates that we gave you. They were intended to be conservative.
Any other questions? Now can we have a motion?
Okay. I move that in the case of BBA 22-2004, the appeal of the building official's decision that the work performed at 1100 Broadway is granted relief from Article 700.3 of the 2017 National Electrical Code, and that the Building Board of Appeals reverses the building official's decision for the reasons: number 3, the applicant has proposed a temporary equal form of construction with the stipulation that this is intended to be a short-term bridge, and with the assurance that the interim temporary system will be as effective and as responsive as if it was the permanent code-mandated fixed emergency generator.
Any comments on the motion?
Just one, should we put a time limit on it?
Well, from what I heard, that doesn't sound like it's possible. I mean, so let's say you put a time limit on of 4 or 5 months, then what?
We could have them come back, though, and give us an update. I guess they would be that, you know,
Yeah.
it would be,
Yeah. Okay.
if they don't have the generator by the end of September, we'd want to report what the status of it is.
Vacate the building?
I don't think we would vacate the building, but we
No,
want to
but I
at least an
mean-
update of what, at least they would give the building department an update, I guess.
For enforcement, and I'm just asking, could we have clarification on the function, how it's supposed to function in that time frame as part of the?
Okay, so I'll try.
I'm just, I
No, no, no,
don't
no,
know how to.
that's
yeah.
fine, that's fine. That's a good point. So as an amendment to the stipulation that the granting of this appeal is subject to being revisited by October of 2023, and that the applicant will provide a detailed description of the functioning of the system that will allow for the building department to approve? I'm sorry, you're looking for enforcement?
So I guess I'm just looking for clarification. How does the generator need to function? As a permanent, does it need to function as the permanent generator would?
Okay.
I would say that would meet the compliance of all these requirements of section, 2702. It meets all those functions, but as a temporary generator. He's got to provide all these functions.
Okay, I thought I had that in there, but, okay. So, as a further amendment to the stipulations, that this interim arrangement will comply with all the requirements of the IBC's 2015 Section 2700-02 provisions?
Yeah, I guess there was a question about how the temporary generator is going to function and how a permanent one would, and that's sort of where the exception that they were looking for. So I don't know how to clearly, I guess, know what we're looking for in functionality of the generator.
Well, I guess the stipulation that I put in the motion, that it will be as effective and as responsive as if it was a permanent code-mandated fixed emergency generator. So in other words, the explanation we had earlier in the meeting was that this arrangement was going to function exactly like a permanent generator, with the one enunciation issue not being capable of being resolved, with a further understanding that this is not taking the place of the ultimate emergency generator that's supposed to be there, fixed emergency generator that's supposed to be there. Is that, yeah?
Any other
Excuse me,
comments?
this is Rod Nugent, and I might be out of order here, I'm not seeing the screen. But in the spirit of trying to help come up with a solution that ultimately, if this is granted, that we don't end up in a, problem where we're having to debate with the building department over what was approved. Could I offer a little input? Would that be acceptable?
Go ahead.
Yep, did you say okay? So Eric, could I ask you to, I think we're all trying to, it sounds like we're trying to work in good faith toward a solution here. So, Eric, hearing what and I don't know, I can't see it, so I don't know which commissioners are speaking, but hearing the commissioner's question and hearing what Mike is saying, I think we're trying to establish, if this were allowed, what are the expectations in terms of the performance? Can you speak in terms of code sections or specific, something granular that we can all, hold to so that we're not, we get some kind of relief today and then we're instantly debating what that meant? Can you help us there, please?
Yes. I think that we need to acknowledge that the temporary generator, when it's connected to the portable cabinet, is connected in exactly the same manner as the permanent generator. So in terms of power flow to systems, to emergency systems, whether that's the fire pump, the elevator, the emergency lighting, power flow is exactly the same because it all starts with the portable generator cabinet, whether it's the temporary generator or the permanent generator. They are both connected through that cabinet, flow into the building to the transfer switch in exactly the same wires. So I think if we acknowledge that, then the approval would be tied to the NEC 700.3F, which is the code section that addresses this situation. If the permanent generator is unable to perform, then you have a temporary generator connected to a portable cabinet. And that I would suggest that we tie it to that. And that's the code path anyway, to get where we are trying to go.
You have that in the motion here?
So let me try to add one more piece to this. So where I said it was as responsive as if it was the permanent code mandated fixed emergency generator conforming to the provisions of NEC 700.3F.
Yes, I agree.
Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay. So for a majority, for it to pass, we have 4 board members here, so we need at least 3 affirmative votes for this to pass.
Are you
Those in favor?
folks, are you folks clear on the stipulations? Because there was a motion, then he started a second, then there was some things later. So Deb, are you clear on what the record's going to reflect with respect to the motion? Or
Unless Bob is ready to read it again, I'm going to have to review the tape to put it all together and send it out and see if it reads as you stipulated. You okay with that?
unless everything's written down? Or,
I can have it for you this afternoon, unless you have it now.
Could you do that? Because I
Yep.
do much better with that than trying to
Yep.
revisit my chicken scratches here, so.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yep, I will review it this afternoon and send it out.
All right.
So we can have a vote today, or how would that work? You could vote on this motion, what we believe it to be?
What we believe it to be, yes.
Should I read this again?
I think it's going to, yes.
All right, so
I think we understand what's in there.
So the essence of the appeal was that they are proposing something per item 3 that is a temporary equal form of construction with the stipulation that this is intended to be a short-term bridge and with the assurance that the interim temporary system will be as effective and as responsive as if it was the permanent code-mandated fixed emergency generation installation conforming to NEC 700.3F, and that this appeal and the progress towards solution would be revisited by October 2023.
First or 31st.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second on that, the second is still stands.
So that means September 31st, because
So, October
you said by October, so September is by October. October is not by October, so you might want to clarify that so that there's Dempsey and this electrician here, and there everyone's clear on what that date is. I'm not trying to push for one or the other.
That's a good point.
Excuse me, this is Ron, just in terms of the timing, if I'm not out of order. The timing I was saying is that we would have it installed by the end of October. We expect to have it delivered, obviously before then, so delivered and installed by the end of October. And I'd be pleased to provide, if you want interim updates on the status, I have no problem doing that, either through the building department or if you'd like me to come, back to a formal meeting and, testify. You just let me know what would suit your fancy on that.
How about the October meeting? Our October meeting?
I think it's the end of October, and if we don't have it by then, we'd want an update, the building department, we can provide an update.
I can put on the calendar to attend the October meeting, and if it's not installed by that time, then I would be at the meeting, and I would provide a detailed explanation of exactly the status.
The October meeting is scheduled for the 19th.
Thank you.
So far, it's still September. Because what do these guys have to say? October 19th.
Okay.
Do I have to say any more?
I don't think so, I think we have an understanding that we want to have an update by
By the October 19th, the scheduled October 19th BBA meeting.
if it's not in install and operation mode, then we want an update by that meeting. So those in favor of the motion? Aye.
We didn't have a second.
I have a second.
Did you second?
Second.
Oh,
Yeah.
after all that? Yeah.
Yeah. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 There's 3 positives. Those against?
4 positives.
4 positives, okay, all right. The motion is granted. So, you're all set.
Well, thank you very much for your assistance in this matter, and very much greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the meeting?
We are all set with our applicants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the only new actions, appeals, and short files. We have any old business to cover? Nothing on the agenda, but we'll take some of them. Any other new business?
Before you close out, so do you want to send me that
I
this
can.
afternoon, just
Yes.
for last go-over?
Yep.
Okay, and just a quick question for the attorney. Am I allowed to do any edits on that, or I have to be really close to the wording that's in there, right?
Yeah, the problem was that there was a motion, there wasn't an immediate second, then there was discussion, and then Mike Lemieux chimed in, and
Right.
then Ron Mucha chimed in,
Right.
none of whom have the authority modify it. I mean, you might want to hear from them during comment. And then there was an amendment or an attempted amendment, but then it didn't fly. And then there was a later amendment, so it's pretty murky. So it's potentially murky. I think that, I mean, Deb does a heck of a job going through it and listening through it, and, well, that didn't have legs, and that kind of went away, and then this did. So I think we're going to be okay, but if it's not what you said, if it's what you said, it's what you said. So, you know.
So I should keep it more to, you know,
It's not what you meant.
grammatical flow rather than content.
Well, I'm sorry?
I should keep it more toward the grammatical end of things and not toward like changing content or implying.
Don't change it. You can't change,
Okay.
well, I meant this, or I should have said this on second thought. You know, we're locked in right now, which is why if it were in writing, it would be easier to make sure we all know what it is.
Okay.
Okay,
No pressure.
you get that today, that'll be,
You're going to copy the,
Yep.
okay.
next item on the agenda is new business. Anybody for any other new business? Or a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
I want to talk to you.